Hey there, and welcome to today's video. For today's video, we are back to doing a community lot. I mentioned a while back that I wanted to make a community lot, and then I proceeded to not do it. So I figured for today, why not actually do it? I've been wanting to build something like this for a while. Basically, it ended up being a library, but what I wanted to build was something that had a tree in the middle and a walkway at some point. So it ended up being a bit of an inner courtyard, but you can't really access it unless it's from the outside. So it's more of an outside area that you just happen to be able to see from all places within the building. Now, I did want to go for a bit more modern, and it's going to end up having a lot of windows, but most of the windows are going to be in that inner courtyard, whereas the outside, it's going to be basically no windows. For the most part, at least. The reason being that most buildings, when you look at them in real life, they don't have windows all over unless it's something like a building that has a lot of offices in it. But more times than not, there's at least one or two walls that don't have anything. In this case, I ended up covering a lot of that with just plants in general, some trees here and there. And one of the walls I did leave mostly blank, and I was heavily debating putting some graffiti on it. But I ended up liking the building too much, and I didn't think the graffiti was going to do it any justice. So I decided to not put any of it on there. Most of the building is also a 4-tile wide area, so it became kind of odd when it came down to the layout itself. But what I ended up deciding for the layout was I actually put the stairs in the middle of a section instead of putting them next to the wall, since I ended up putting some floor trim as well, just to give the outside a bit more interest, and I didn't want to cover any of that up with the stairs. So in case you're not aware, yet another glitch that The Sims seem to have is if you place stairs next to the wall, for some reason it removes your floor trim. I have no idea why it does this, but it's one of those long running bugs that they're aware of. I don't know if they're working on, but it is a thing that happens. So I decided to avoid that this time around and basically use the space downstairs to put some bathrooms. Upstairs is just a hallway. But to give the library a bit more realism, like I tend to do with most of my community lots, I ended up doing a bit of a reception area where maybe it's just where you're gonna go and return your books, for example. I gave it a couple bathrooms that any sim could use, and technically the other bathrooms would be for staff only. So on the second floor, I made a bit of a staff only area. I'm not sure what the head honcho of a library is called, but I made an office for them as well. And there's also a couch in there in case there's ever any meetings that go on. Obviously, that won't really happen in The Sims, but again, just trying to give it a bit more realism. Have a bit of a staff area where they can make some food, for example. There's a microwave in there, some lockers as well, and a table. It's not super filled up since at the end of the day there's only so much space, but they do have some private bathrooms, which, as any employee for any place can tell you, you can always appreciate having a private bathroom that customers are not the ones using. So after that, it was just a matter of filling up the space with what's required for the lot to actually be considered a library. I tend to like using tables more than I do using desks, but since desks were specifically required to be able to list this as a library, I ended up putting a couple desks where maybe there's just one chair, maybe somebody wanted more of a private area, I guess we could consider that. But the rest of the space is filled with just tables with chairs on them, which when I was playtesting the lot, mainly just to make sure that the little ramp up actually worked, since I didn't want to include steps, but I also wanted it to be on a bit of a hill. When I was playtesting that, it was interesting that a lot of the townies ended up bringing their own laptops, so I'm glad to see that there's going to be a lot of use for that, where I was more thinking what you would need it for in a library, which is, well, maybe you want to sit on a table to read instead of a couch, or maybe you're there working on some sort of group project. Stuff like that was what I had in mind. So I was pleasantly surprised when townies started bringing in their laptops and making use of the space. Aside from that, there's plenty of computers. I decided to basically make the whole third floor be kind of like the computer area. And on the second floor, there are some of the chess tables, which I believe are also required, but it was mostly there just to be the logic skill that your sim will need. So all in all, I'd say it's what you would find in a pretty standard library. In some of my other ones, I would have included some more items for some logic skills, but realistically, it wouldn't really be in a library if you ask me. Some other items that I considered putting here and there were things like easels and things, but again, more times than not, you tend to be at a library to make use of either their quiet spaces, their shared spaces, which again come from the tables that you can utilize, or to get the books in general. So I didn't really think that an easel was going to make too much sense here. But anyways, we are getting close to the end of the video since, like always, I cut out most of the landscaping. If that's something you're interested in seeing, do let me know. I tend to just cut it out since it's a lot of just copying and pasting plants here and there. But do let me know what you think of this build down below. Let me know what you'd like me to try out next, and I hope to see you in the next video. Have a great weekend!